This is the push and pull of when a Republican is the president. There's an attempt when a Republican's in the White House, Donald Trump or any other Republican, to argue that these federal agencies, federal workers, the bureaucracy, sort of can act independently or autonomously from the political leadership of the country. And that's what's happening here. That's why everyone is melting down. That's why the lady came on CNN today. They don't want to answer the email because they don't want to answer to the president.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Common Thread, where we wade through the media circus so you don't have to. Earlier this week, something hilarious and a little maddening unfolded over at CNN. Now I know, shocker, right? But this one was special. So, Scott Jennings, yeah, that's Scott, the guy who always seems to be the lone voice of reason surrounded by a sea of scripted nonsense, found himself smack in the middle of yet another chaotic CNN panel. And believe me, this time the producers really outdid themselves with the guest list. Front and center? Ana Navarro. You probably know her from The View, where she somehow manages to be both the loudest and least coherent person in every conversation. She's the kind of commentator who could make even a silent retreat sound like a shouting match. And when I tell you she came in swinging with recycled outrage and emotional grandstanding, I mean it. It wasn't a debate, it was performance art. But here's the thing, Scott didn't flinch. Most of us would have checked out the second Ana started one of her half-baked monologues, but not him. He stayed, he listened. And then, with that same calm delivery he always brings, he started breaking down every liberal talking point like it was basic arithmetic. And let me be honest, it was kind of satisfying, like watching someone finally organize a messy desk. So if you're ready to watch someone with common sense dismantle emotional outbursts and twisted logic piece by piece, you're in the right place. Let's dive into this train wreck of a panel and watch Scott Jennings work his magic. Let's get into it.
I want to dispel this myth that federal employees are some lazy, bureaucrats that don't show up for their work. Listen, 85% of federal workers work outside of Washington, D.C. Those are people who work at our national parks. Those are people who work on, the ag departments in farm bureau states. Those are people who are taking care of Medicaid and processing payments for people in red states like where Donald Trump lives. So we need to stop being so cavalier, Scott, about people and whether they're working or not and how come they're so upset about getting an email. Because these are people's livelihoods.
Because some are being cavalier.
You have the privilege of sitting here getting a six-figure paycheck from CNN.
And I have to show up every day. And I have to show up and earn it. And I have to show up and earn it.
As public servants, and they do the same.
And I have to show up.
And the fact that you assume that they don't is obnoxious and insulting to those people.
They're not showing up and earning it?
They're good public servants.
Hold on.
Why are you assuming that they are?
Hang on. Hold on, Joe. Let me play for you, just because apparently you think that it's only Anna and Tara who are concerned about this. Here's John Curtis talking about this yesterday.
If I could say one thing to Elon Musk, it's like, please put a dose of compassion in this. These are real people. These are real lives. These are mortgages. It's a false narrative to say we have to cut and you have to be cruel to do it as well. We can do both.
There's nothing cruel on.
Hold on.
Okay, wait a minute.
Joe and Scott and Tara, and we all cannot speak at the same time. But, okay, his point is, let's not be cruel. You can find out how people are performing on their job without sending a gimmicky email that is only going to get, you're going to get false positives. You're going to get people who are bad performers responding to the email and good performers not responding to the email. And what does that tell you, Scott?
The premise of your question is that there are thousands of federal workers who are lazy and dishonest. You're saying that if people respond, then they're trying to game the system of a gimmicky email. That's number one. And I don't necessarily believe that.
On the planet.
Okay,
there's nothing.
That's not how you evaluate people, by asking them to send you a random email.
They're not being evaluated. They're simply being asked, what 5 things did you do last week? It is a simple question. And the fact that no one seems to want to answer it tells me
no.
more than
Can we put this in context, though? This is after, just in the first few days of the administration, they received a buyout offer that then wasn't really a buyout offer. Then it was very confusing.
No, now, it's not. They got a buyout if they want.
There's colleagues all over the country being fired in a haphazard way. There's probationary workers.
At this stage, I've picked up a little survival trick. The second Ana Navarro opens her mouth, I brace myself, not out of suspense, not even curiosity, but because history has taught me that 9 times out of 10, what comes out next is going to be absolutely off the rails. There's no warning, no build-up, no subtle lead-in, just straight into the chaos like she's got a stopwatch to beat. It's like she wakes up in the morning, downs a gallon of indignation, and charges straight into the conversation with 0 facts and maximum volume. Case in point, she's now trying to float this bizarre narrative that federal workers never actually got a buyout offer. Like, seriously? What does she think 75,000 people signed earlier this year? A Valentine's Day card? No, it was a real documented buyout. And not just any buyout. We're talking full pay, all benefits, 8 months off, no obligation to show up, and nearly a full year to find something new. I've been in the working world long enough to tell you, that is not a layoff, that's a vacation with severance. Most folks don't even get a handshake on their way out the door, let alone a golden parachute made of taxpayer money. But because Trump and Elon Musk are even remotely connected to the effort, the media had to twist it. Suddenly it's cruel, callous, inhumane. Give me a break. If this same deal had come from a Democratic administration, they'd be handing out Emmys. But when Trump tries to clean house in a bloated bureaucracy, the talking heads on cable news act like he's Darth Vader. And the email? The one that caused all this pearl clutching? It was 2 questions long. That's it. Are you checking your government email? And what did you do last week? That's the big, scary, trauma-inducing message. If that's enough to break someone's spirit, maybe, just maybe, they're not the high-performing public servant we're told they are. Anyway, take a breath, grab a coffee, because if you thought that was something, wait till you hear what comes next.
For performance issues when nobody is actually evaluating their performance. Then this email goes out. Then the agency heads say, no, don't answer the email. Don't you find it a little bit, don't you think it would be a little bit stressful right now to be a federal worker, to be a park ranger? Yes.
And there
To be
are
a federal worker?
It's a hell of a lot more stressful than being a
This is
top watch on
episode number
CNN.
175. Democrats dying on the
Joe,
Hill.
Yes, well,
Joe,
it is
Tara,
stressful
and
to be
Scott,
an air
and
traffic controller
Anna. Everybody,
and
hold on
having
one second.
Your colleagues fired. It is stressful to be working
No air
at the
traffic controllers were
NIH.
fired. That's a lie.
It is stressful to be.
Not one. Name one
Elon,
air traffic controller.
Elon Musk
Yesterday,
tonight.
I read it in the Miami
Anna,
Herald this
hang on a
weekend.
second. Elon Musk tonight, just to add to the confusion about this, to be honest, he sent out another message on X saying the email requested was utterly trivial, as the standard for passing the test was to type some words and press send. Okay, yet so many failed even that inane test and urged on in some cases by their managers. Have you ever witnessed such incompetence and contempt for how your taxes are being spent? Makes old Twitter look good. Did not think that was possible. There was also some indication that maybe they might have more time. So
Elon
can
also
they get
put
their
out
story straight?
but he also put out a Twitter that said that, oh, Donald Trump now has given them a second chance for the people who didn't respond the first time, and that's the second chance. Like, first of all, let's get this straight. Elon Musk, no one elected him. Doge is a fake, illegal operation that the courts will decide because it's in being litigated what they're doing. Also, people who are working at the federal government, the cruelty of this are people who have just graduated from college or just finished their master's or came from PhD programs, and now they're being told by NASA or by HHS or by NIH after they move their lives to wherever to be public servants, and they're told now, well, no, pack up, you gotta go. This is happening indiscriminately across our government. That is cruel, it's unnecessary, it's dangerous, and when our own agencies are telling us that malign actors, are we just ignoring that
thinks
part?
it's cruel to
Malign
get an email
actors?
from your boss asking, hey, what did you accomplish?
Elon Musk is not their
no one
boss.
thinks that's
He
cruel.
works for the president.
No one thinks that's cruel. He is. If
Does
he's
he?
appointed
Or does
by
the president work for
he
him?
is their
I
boss.
wonder who-
There's
who-
$271 billion
Joe,
of federal
you said
spending.
no one, but that's not the case, okay? Here's Lisa Murkowski, also a Republican senator. She says he should get to know each department and agency. She's talking about Elon, and learn about the jobs he's trying to cut. Our public workforce deserves to be treated with dignity and respect for the unheralded jobs they perform. The absurd weekend email to justify their existence wasn't it.
We deserve a
Thanks for that, Lisa Murkowski. Truly, I'm sure the entire nation was holding its breath, waiting for your hot take on federal compassion. Look, I get it. You're technically a Republican, but let's be real. Half the time, you sound like a guest host on The View. You want to talk about treating bureaucrats with dignity and respect? Great. Let's also talk about what accountability looks like. Because here's the truth. No one on that panel wants to say out loud. Just because you work for the government doesn't mean you get a free pass from basic expectations. And yes, Lisa, you're right. Elon Musk wasn't elected. Neither was Anthony Fauci. And yet Fauci made sweeping decisions that affected every American. Told people when they could leave their homes, when they could see dying relatives, and who was essential without ever facing a single ballot. Funny how the outrage didn't show up then. But now, Musk sends an email. Not a pink slip, not a subpoena. Just an email asking federal workers to briefly explain what they've been doing. And suddenly, we're clutching our pearls, like it's the Spanish Inquisition. Let me put it plainly. If you're collecting a paycheck from the public deserves to know what they're paying for. Period. This isn't about cruelty. It's about responsibility. And if the bare minimum, a 2-sentence email, is too much for someone to handle, maybe we should ask why they're there in the first place. Because here's the thing, most of us in the real world understand. If a private company brought in consultants to evaluate efficiency and asked you what you've accomplished lately, you wouldn't roll your eyes and say, not your business. You'd answer, Because that's your job. Because you're a professional. So why are we treating government work like it's sacred and untouchable? And now that someone like Musk, who's actually trying to clean house, is shining a light on the waste and dysfunction, suddenly everyone's panicking. It's not because he's wrong, it's because he's right. And when you shine that kind of light on years of bloat, complacency, and hidden inefficiencies, well, that's when the rats start squealing.
Their accounting of the $271 billion we spend in a federal payroll.
Totally
if
agree.
someone cannot answer a simple
that's what
email,
Congress is
saying,
for.
hey,
Actually,
are you
Joe,
alive?
that's
I'm here.
Congress's job.
Joe, I actually think you're 100% correct about that. There should be an accounting, but that's not this.
That's Congress's
Why?
job. That's the
This is not-
Inspector
no, it's
General's
not.
job that
It's
they
not.
fired.
It's Elon Musk's
How
job.
does
No,
this
it's
tell
not.
you
He doesn't-
anything about what's going on with the government?
Can I?
Again,
Elon Musk
this
knows
is-
what
this
is
was-
how the government runs.
What is it telling you,
The
Joe?
argument that this was gimmicky.
What is it telling you
is
about where the
okay.
money is
Yes,
being
this
spent?
was gimmicky. It's saying who is actually coming in. Lee Zeldin just required his workforce to come in on Fridays and Mondays.
That's not what we're
that
talking about
hasn't.
here.
But my point is that's something that hasn't even been thought of in years. And
You
since-
just
since
acknowledged
COVID.
it was gimmicky by Elon Musk, like him going out on the CPAC stage with a
It's
chainsaw,
gimmicky
jumping
in the
around
sense
like
that it's a
like
funny
a
way of
buffoon.
saying who's even
When people's
reading their
lives are on the
emails.
line here, their
Who's even reading their
livelihoods.
emails?
All right, hold on,
I think,
Scott.
I think one other point, and this is the push and pull of when a Republican is the president. There's an attempt when a Republican's in the White House, Donald Trump or any other Republican, to argue that these federal agencies, federal workers, the bureaucracy, sort of can act independently or autonomously from the political leadership of the country. And that's what's happening here. That's why everyone is melting down. That's why the lady came on CNN today. They don't want to answer the email because they don't want to answer to the president. And the
I'm not-
message
I'm
from
not
Trump and
follow-
Musk is
hold on
we have
here.
political
I'm
leaders
not-
in this
Scott,
country
I'm
and you
not
got to
following-
answer to
I'm
them.
not following you. Are you you
Yes.
suggesting that it's only when Republicans
Yes.
are president that
100%.
agencies
Yes.
express independence?
Yes,
Well, you know that
correct.
that's not true.
No, I know it is 100% true
No,
that the
Scott,
bureaucracy
there
is
are-
not
there are
aligned
career-
with,
there are
mostly
career
not
civil
aligned with
servants.
Republicans.
For a reason.
There are career
They're every-
civil servants
yeah.
who work with
Every-
one president
among
and
Democrats and
another,
Republican
do so
presidents,
for the Constitution
there-
and the love of country.
Hold on a second. Among Democrats and Republican presidents, there are certain agencies that are statutorily independent from politics. That's the same whether it's Republican or Democrat.
You're saying that the bureaucracy is as responsive to Republican or Trump priorities as Democratic?
Is that what I said? No, it's
You're-
not.
you're saying- you're saying that-
Here's-
that
I'm gonna-
bias doesn't exist, and I
Scott,
disagree.
let me just repeat what I said. There are certain agencies, regardless of the president, that are statutorily independent from politics because they deal with things that pertain to the American public, and there needs to be continuity,
Like what?
regardless of who the
Federal
president is.
Reserve,
the
the
Federal
Postal
Reserve,
Commission.
the Security and Exchange Commission.
Right.
There are plenty
So-
of agencies that are like that.
But an email doesn't jeopardize
hang on,
continuity of government.
And there are many federal employees that are civil servants, meaning that they don't come in because of partisan politics. That's there to protect you as a conservative and Tara as a liberal.
I'm sorry, I think
it's there
that's-
to protect
I think-
both.
You know, I might not have every statistic memorized, but I'll tell you what I do remember crystal clear. Right after Trump won the presidency, a survey was quietly circulated among federal managers. A simple question, really. Will you carry out the president's agenda or just do whatever you think is best? And the answer? A majority essentially said, yeah, we'll ignore him if we disagree. Just think about that. Federal employees, the very people whose paychecks come from our taxes, openly admitting they'd defy the elected leader of the United States just because they didn't like his politics. That's not how a republic is supposed to operate. That's not resistance. That's insubordination wrapped in self-righteousness. And let's not pretend this is balanced. Everyone with eyes can see what's going on. When a Democrat's in the White House, the bureaucracy plays ball. Budgets go up, agencies expand, and nobody asks questions. But the moment a Republican, especially someone like Trump or Musk, steps into the room, suddenly it's chaos, nervous pearl clutching. Bureaucrats acting like they're being persecuted because someone dared to ask them, hey, what did you do this week? Now let's talk about Doge. This whole firestorm started because the Doge team, maybe Musk himself, maybe one of his lieutenants, sent out an email. It wasn't a layoff notice. It wasn't a performance review. It was a pulse check. Tell us what you did this week. That's it. And now it's being painted as some cruel, inhumane attack on public service. Look, if your job is to serve the public and you can't handle a basic accountability question, what exactly are we paying you for? This isn't emotional trauma, it's common sense. If your manager, elected or not, wants to know if you're alive and contributing, that shouldn't feel like a violation. It should feel like part of the job. But once again, the left-wing narrative machine fires up. Suddenly it's cruel, it's inhumane, it's a threat to democracy. Please. This is what happens anytime someone disrupts the cozy, unchecked status quo of federal work. They scream authoritarian, the moment someone asks for a receipt. Here's what really grates. If you or I ghosted our boss for a week, we'd be fired. End of story. But in Washington, silence gets excused, rationalized, even defended on cable news by people who have never worked a real job outside of media or politics. That's the bubble these folks live in, one where basic work expectations are treated like political warfare. And let's not forget the insult to taxpayers. You, me, everyone watching, we fund this, and we get told to shut up and pay more taxes, while the people on the inside get to play victim because someone had the nerve to ask them to click reply. That's not public service, that's entitlement on steroids. But once again, the moment you challenge that entitlement, the moment you push for even the smallest dose of efficiency, the swamp screams loudly. Because the last thing they want is for the American people to realize how little accountability exists behind those polished DC desks. But hey, what do you think? Is Elon Musk asking too much? Are these federal workers just victims of a mean email? Or is this exactly what we've needed for decades? Someone finally shining a light on the bloated machine that we call government. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't hold back. And if watching left-wing pundits absolutely spiral every time Republicans actually do their jobs brings you as much joy as it brings me, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the common thread. We've got more videos on the way. Until then, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and stay free.